Humankind cannot gain anything without first giving something in return. To obtain, something of equal value must be lost. That is alchemy's first law of equivalent exchange. Sacrifice is one of life's hardest truths, isn't it? Whether it's time, relationships, or something even more profound, sacrifice shapes who we are and what we become. Few stories explore this theme better than Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Today I will dive into how sacrifice is woven into the lives of Edward and Alphonse Elric and the characters around them. We'll explore what their sacrifices mean, not just in the context of the story, but in our own lives too. Because, let's face it, no meaningful journey comes without a cost. The principle of equivalent exchange is the bedrock of alchemy, and the philosophical heart of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is a deceptively simple rule. To gain something, something of equal value must be lost. For Ed and Al, this truth becomes painfully clear during their failed attempt at a forbidden form of alchemy, human transmutation. When the brothers lose their mother, their grief pushes them to attempt the unthinkable, bringing her back. Fueled by desperation and love, they perform a human transmutation, believing they can defy nature itself. The results are catastrophic. Alphonse loses his entire body, and Edward sacrifices his leg and later his arm to save Al's soul, binding it to a suit of armor. Their devastating losses become a constant reminder that some things can't be undone, no matter how noble the intention. What makes this moment so profound is how it mirrors real life. We've all experienced moments where the cost of a decision becomes painfully evident. Perhaps it's dedicating years to a relationship that falls apart, or pouring effort into a dream that doesn't come true. In those moments, the concept of equivalent exchange feels uncomfortably real. Everything has a price. But the Elric story teaches us something crucial about resilience. Rather than succumbing to despair, they take responsibility for their actions and embark on a journey to make things right. They don't allow their sacrifices to define them negatively, but instead use them as a foundation for growth. This mirrors real life scenarios where setbacks become opportunities of transformation. Consider someone who loses a job, but uses the experience to pivot towards a more fulfilling career. Or someone who faces rejection but learns to embrace their authentic self. The lesson here is clear. While sacrifices are inevitable, what matters is how we respond to them. Ed and Al's journey also challenges us to think about what we're willing to sacrifice for the things that matter most. In our lives, we make sacrifices daily, whether it's time spent away from loved ones to build a career, or stepping out of our comfort zone to pursue a passion. The brothers remind us that sacrifices, while painful, are often stepping stones to growth and redemption. Their story resonates because it's ultimately about hope. Despite all their losses, Edward and Alphonse never stop fighting for a brighter future. It's a lesson that transcends the screen. Life may demand sacrifices, but it's what we do afterwards that define who we are. But Ed and Al are not the only characters that show us the meaning of sacrifice. Scar's story is one of pain, anger, and transformation. Born in Ishval, a region ravaged by war, Scar loses everything: his home, his family, and his faith in humanity. These losses fuel his rage, driving him to become a vengeful assassin targeting state alchemists, whom he holds responsible for the destruction of his people. At first glance, Scar's sacrifice seems involuntary. His people's suffering and his brother's death are thrust upon him by the military's cruelty, yet his response to these losses is what defines him. Scar channels his pain into a relentless pursuit of vengeance, sacrificing his humanity and peace of mind in the process. This cycle of revenge is something many of us can relate to, albeit on a smaller scale. When we're wronged, whether it's betrayal by a friend, injustice at work, or heartbreak, it's natural to feel anger and resentment. Scar's journey reflects that raw human desire to lash out, to make someone pay. But his story also shows us the cost of holding on to that anger. Over time, Scar begins to change. His brother's teachings, which emphasize compassion and rebuilding, start to resonate with him. Scar realizes that vengeance doesn't heal wounds, it only deepens them. By choosing justice over revenge, he begins to honor his brother's memory in a way that promotes growth rather than destruction. In real life, this shift mirrors the experiences of individuals who find purpose after tragedy. Think of activists who turn personal loss into fight for systematic change, or survivors who use their stories to inspire others. Scar's evolution reminds us that while anger is a natural response to pain, it's ultimately more powerful to channel that energy into something constructive. Scar's story also highlights the importance of forgiveness, not just for others, but for ourselves. By letting go of his rage, Scar finds a sense of peace and a new purpose. It's a lesson that applies to all of us. Holding on to anger only hurts ourselves and the people around us, while letting go opens the door to healing and growth. But not all sacrifices have to be big moments with world-shaking effects. Winry Rockbell's role in Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood often gets overshadowed by the Elric brothers' journey, but her emotional sacrifices are just as poignant and vital to the narrative. As Ed and Al's childhood friend, she endures the emotional toll of watching them suffer and fight while being largely unable to protect them herself. One of her most significant moments comes when she learns Scar killed her parents during the Ishvalan War. Faced with the man responsible for her deepest loss, Winry's initial reaction is one of shock and grief. But instead of succumbing to hatred or vengeance, she chooses empathy. In a moment of immense strength, she spares Scar, recognizing that continuing the cycle of violence will only perpetuate her pain. This act of forgiveness highlights the emotional sacrifices Winry makes throughout the series. She sets aside her own hurt to support those around her, whether it's choosing not to burden Edward with her fears or dedicating herself to helping others as a mechanic. Winry embodies the idea that not all sacrifices are physical. Some are about choosing to love and forgive, even when it hurts. In real life, Winry's journey is a reminder of the quiet, everyday sacrifices we make for those we care about. From parents who work tirelessly to provide for their children, to friends who offer unwavering support during tough times. These sacrifices may not always be dramatic, but they're no less significant. Winry's story encourages us to value emotional resilience and the strength it takes to choose kindness over bitterness. While she doesn't fight on the battlefield, her sacrifices are just as crucial as the Elric success. By showing that strength comes in many forms, Winry becomes an inspiring example of how emotional courage can shape the world around us. In stark contrast to Edward, Alphonse and Scar, however, lies the series' antagonist, Father. Father represents a character who refuses to make personal sacrifices. Instead, he manipulates others to achieve his goals, creating the homunculi, which are artificial humans, as extensions of his own desires and consuming countless souls to fuel his ambitions. Father's philosophy is rooted in selfishness. He views sacrifice as weakness, believing that power lies in taking without giving. This mindset isolates him, stripping him of his humanity and leaving him incapable of forming genuine connections. Father's downfall serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of avoiding sacrifice. In life, avoiding challenges or difficult choices may seem easier in the short term, but it often leads to emptiness. Father's insatiable greed and refusal to embrace sacrifice leave him hollow. A stark reminder that true growth comes from what we're willing to give, not take. In contrast, Hohenheim, another pivotal character, represents the power of selfless sacrifice. Despite his flaws, Hohenheim dedicates his life to protecting others, sacrificing his freedom and ultimately his life to save the world. His story shows us that the greatest sacrifices often lead to the most meaningful legacies. Father's story is a reflection of real-life scenarios where people prioritize short-term gain over long-term fulfillment, whether it's chasing material success at the expense of relationships, or avoiding challenges that could lead to personal growth. The avoidance of sacrifice ultimately leads to dissatisfaction. Father's ultimate defeat reinforces a universal truth. Life is about balance. Sacrifice isn't something to fear. It's a necessary part of achieving something greater. But it's not just these main characters that show sacrifice within the show. Even supporting characters have their moments to highlight this idea. Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is filled with minor characters who make sacrifices, often at great personal cost. These characters highlight the ripple effect of sacrifice, showing how even small actions can have profound consequences. Take Dr. Tim Marcoas for example. As a staked alchemist during the Ishvalan War, he creates the Philosopher's Stone, using the lives of Ishvalan people, an act that haunts him for the rest of his life. His guilt leads him to abandon his position and live in hiding, dedicating himself to making amends. When he encounters the Elrics, he sacrifices his safety to give them crucial knowledge about the Philosopher's Stone, putting himself in direct danger from the homunculi. Marco's story reminds us that making amends often involves sacrifice. In real life, acknowledging past mistakes and working to correct them is never easy. It requires vulnerability, courage, and a willingness to face the consequences of our actions. Marco's journey is a testament to this idea that sacrifice can be a path to redemption, even when the scars of the past remain. There is a moment in Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood that is far darker, one that has scarred many of its viewers and is still talked about to this day. And for those who have watched the show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Could you sacrifice the person you love the most in order to reach your goals? Sho Tucker, one of the most despicable men in all of anime, did just that. We meet him and his daughter Nina very early on in the series, and at first we are deceived by Shotoka's general kindness towards Ed and Al, but that all changes in one scene.
これで国家資格を失わずに済むよ。
This scene has caused many people to find him as the worst man in all of anime. There have been murderers, terrorists, serial killers, but this man stands above them all. He's sacrificed the person he loves the most in order to reach his goals. Sacrifice takes a lot and it can be very damaging, but Shotaka takes it to the extreme. He shows how sometimes we are blinded by our goals and instead see those around us, the people we love, as nothing more than just mere tools to further our goals. Sometimes, in this way, sacrifice is a negative thing, something that doesn't further us or promote our growth, but instead makes us worse off, makes us worse people. So when we do try to sacrifice things, it's best to remember, sacrifice comes in many different shapes and sizes. We have to make sure that our sacrifices are done with intent, purpose, and that it's something that we are willing to give up. But there comes a time when we have to make a final decision. A decision that we can't change. An ultimatum. Edward's ultimate sacrifice is perhaps the most poignant moment in the series. After years of struggle, loss and growth, he faces the ultimate test. Give up his alchemy powers to restore Alphonse's body. This moment is a culmination of everything Edward has learned. Throughout the series, alchemy has been his identity, his strength, and his weapon. Giving it up means sacrificing a part of himself, but it also symbolizes his growth. Edward realizes his power doesn't define him. His determination, relationships, and values do. This decision resonates deeply with real life. Sometimes we have to let go of the very things that define us to move forward. Whether it's leaving a toxic job, ending a relationship, or even redefining a lifelong dream. Letting go can be terrifying, but as Edward shows us, it's also liberating. Edward's choice also challenges societal norms around strength and success. In a world that often equates worth with achievements, titles, or power, Edward's story reminds us that true strength lies in knowing ourselves and valuing what truly matters. His final sacrifice isn't just about saving Al, it's about embracing a future built on love, resilience, and hope. It's a message that speaks to all of us. Life's greatest rewards often come from sacrifices we're brave enough to make. Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood reminds us that sacrifice is a complex and deeply personal act. Whether it's Ed and Al giving up their dreams or power to protect their humanity, Scar's acts of vengeance turned to heroism, or Winry choosing forgiveness over revenge. Each sacrifice carries a lesson about resilience, compassion, and the value of what we hold dear. And there are plenty of other sacrifices I could go into. Al's sacrifice in the final battle, Greed's sacrifice in the final battle, and even Father's plan requiring 5 sacrifices to come true. The series doesn't glorify sacrifice, it shows us its cost. It forces us to question what we're willing to give up and why. But it also shows us the beauty of sacrifice, the way it can pave the way for growth, redemption, and change. These lessons aren't confined to the world of Fullmetal Alchemist, they're reflections of the choices we face in our own lives. So, as you think about the sacrifices you've made, or the ones you may be asked to make, remember the courage of these characters. They teach us that true sacrifice isn't about giving something up, it's about choosing what truly matters. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, let me know in the comments what Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood has taught you about sacrifice or about life itself. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the power of storytelling.